Unrivaled Nation, today we are talking about CRISPR Therapeutics. CRSP is the ticker because just earlier today, Flash, my AI assistant, free to use, check the link below, notified me that there was a monster insider purchase at CRISPR Therapeutics. This is Dr. Simeon George purchasing $51 million of CRSP stock, almost doubling his stake. And, looking at what Flash, what AI intelligence thinks, CRISPR can do in the years ahead, it has a bull case that's over 100% upside, but does note that the quality isn't quite there. It's not like a 9 out of 10, it's a 6.5. So in this video, I want to explore because, it's interesting to see, Wall Street react to this, a 15% jump when you see this, because you have a monster insider buy. And oftentimes AI, it's pretty good, but sometimes it misses something that an insider that's a domain expert, someone that's done it before, sees. And that's the reason why, you're potentially seeing this monster insider purchase. So I want to understand, think about what would it take to generate an attractive return from here for potential shareholders. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Daniel. You're watching Unrivaled Investing. If you enjoy educational investment content, I do appreciate you hitting that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. So as I already mentioned, the stock is ripping higher just on this news of this, member of the directors purchasing a monster slug of stock. But it is worth understanding this stock has gone nowhere, actually worse than nowhere, over the last 5 years, where it's still down around 30%. So it's been a wild ride here. But it is important to understand, where is it today? Yes, this is where it's been. It's been on this wild ride, but where are we looking going forward? You can't just drive a car by looking in the rearview mirror, as Warren Buffett would say. And so looking forward, first of all, you've recently had this breakthrough where the FDA approved the world's first CRISPR gene editing drug for sickle cell disease. And this, I believe, is talking about Casgevy, which, this is, when you're talking about sickle cell, this is a inherited blood disorder affecting around 100,000 people, and it causes a mutation in the blood cells to develop a crescent or sickle shape, and it restricts the flow in blood vessels and limits oxygen delivery. So this is a really deadly, painful, unpleasant disease. So if you could, and it's not something that's impacting millions of people, it's targeting around 100,000 folks. And so the question is, does this potentially solve it? And they're saying, yeah, it has been approved. It shows a huge sign of helping patients out. And so far, it's been approved in about 8 jurisdictions, 65 plus authorized treatment centers. And so this could be a material revenue generator. You haven't quite seen it yet because it's just starting, but you could see it in the quarters ahead. So that is an important data point. Another key aspect is that CRISPR is parlaying its first FDA-approved sickle cell treatment into this 4-pronged pipeline. You have blood disorders, off-the-shelf T cells, in-body heart disease edits, and diabetes cell replacement. So it's turning this cutting-edge gene editing into a broad, potentially blockbuster, multi-blockbuster business. Now, in full disclosure, I am not an expert on CRISPR or these technologies or these diseases. And so this is a lot of my, doing some sleuthing, leveraging AI. If anyone is an expert that's watching this and says, oh, Daniel, this is what this really means and you're misreading it, please let me know. I'd love to hear it, because we're all students. We're all looking to learn. This is just me sharing what I've learned so far. And so continuing, they're leveraging the sickle cell treatment into this 4-pronged approach to try to solve some massive categories. And you could see it's this huge pipeline of varying, various different treatments in various different stages, whether or not you only have, this limited number, this Casgevy that's been actually approved, and they have a partner, Vertex, that I believe, that it's a profit share. And so I believe Casgevy starts generating revenue for them once it's in the profit. And so these are challenges here. You're talking about cutting edge treatments. How do you roll it out? Who do you partner with? For example, they do show that for their pipeline, several of them they do wholly own, some of which they do have partners, again, like Vertex over here. And you can see it's in various different stages of either clinical trials or trying to figure it out, early stage research. And one of the examples of what's in the pipeline is their first off-the-shelf CAR-T made via CRISPR, so this gene editing, has induced cancer remissions in roughly 2/3 of these very difficult to treat lymphoma patients. And you can see that it's a sample size of 12, and it shows that there was a impact rate effectively of around 8 of the 12 saw some sort of impact, where there was complete remission with 6. So 50% complete remission out of the 12. And there was a partial remission with 2 out of 12. So that's how you're getting to around 67%. So, I mean, for me, I read this and it's really exciting to think about the potential breakthroughs that could be, ahead in the future. And this is just one of the items that's in the pipeline. They also have, CTX310. And with this, in its first 10 patients, a single infusion of CTX310 safely slashed triglycerides by up to 80% plus and LDL up to 80% at higher doses. So this is hinting at a potent one and done gene editing therapy to treat tough, lipid disorders. And so I look at this. I look at this and I'm thinking a lot of these things are way over my skis in terms of assessing the severity of these problems, how likely, reading this data is a challenge. I'm asking ChatGPT, I'm talking about it, help explain this to me. And so I'm reading the reports from Flash to understand, okay, what does it say about these things? And so, looking at it, it seems like there's a lot of potential breakthroughs coming down the road. This is the stuff that gets me excited, because I know it's kind of crazy to say, and this is not a political comment. This is, I have Ray Kurzweil's book over my shoulder right here. The Singularity is Getting Nearer. And the reason why I bring that up is because it does create this sense of optimism. We might be approaching some sort of golden age, not even any sort of political comment. This is a comment about, imagine these types of treatments being rolled out in the next few years, where you say, yeah, you just tweak these genes that have gone off course with this, population of people, 100,000 people. You're not talking about huge. You're able to target these diseases. Maybe you're able to have some sort of special cancer treatment, this CAR-T cancer treatments. And then, you have this huge reduction in potential cancer, complete remissions in some cases. I think it was 50% CR for that. So I look at this and it's just so very exciting. And you have Jeff Bezos. He's made comments about if he were to do it again, he wouldn't be going into e-commerce. He would be looking at the field of biology and looking at the dramatic changes that's going to undergo. So it's hard not to be excited for humanity when you think about the potential and see what they're working on. So I'm hopeful. I'm rooting for them, no matter what. But that's, different than what happens as a shareholder? Do you make money from it? So what are my thoughts? Because this is an investment, educational channel. So I want to put it through the lens, not only of my optimism for society and my excitement, but, is this something that I would consider investing in? And so first of all, this is not financial advice as I look at CRISPR. And also, quick plug, recently Simeon K wrote, "Thanks, Daniel. Grateful that you've created this service for the community. Extremely helpful and valuable." He's talking about unrivaled investing. This follows Kieran D, who said, "Gave the service a try and was very impressed. Been investing 5 years now and haven't found anything comparable to what you're providing. So if you're looking for compelling ideas, come check out Unrivaled Investing." When I look at CRISPR, it is important to recognize this is a company that effectively generated very little revenue, close to no revenue so far, even though they already have their first FDA-approved treatment. So this is maybe this insider buy is about a reflection about where they're going to be. Sort of the Wayne Gretzky quote about skate to where the puck is going versus where it's been. Looking at the financial statements, that's where it's been. Not generating any revenue, generating monster losses. I mean, you're talking about around $500 million a year in losses that they're doing. So clearly $50 million bet is saying, yeah, that $500 million annual losses, that's not going to be happening in the future. In the future, maybe you start having these pipelines, maybe you have multiple products pick up, and then you're talking about, possibly multi-billion-dollar revenue sources from them. Because one of the disconnects that I think, it's sort of hard to to grapple with is that these treatments, because they're life-saving and because, that it, in many cases, I believe they're one and done versus sort of recurring revenue, they have to recoup the investment somehow. At least that's how they're thinking about it. And so the price point for some of these treatments, I mean, you're talking about $1 million, $2 million, huge price points. But if you can get insurance to pay for it, and you can get a small subset of, let's say, 100,000, 1,000, now you're starting to talk about, potentially billions in revenue sort of thought process over time. We'll see. That is a societal question as well. But also, when you're talking about cancer treatment, that's obviously a bigger market. So not generating a lot of revenue yet. Clearly, they're likely heading in that direction of generating significant revenue. And keep in mind, when you have the whole system is designed that when you have the patents and no one else can make it, then you're going to have crazy high margins. So, you have these revenues, and then the revenues have like 80% profits, but then you're reinvesting it in R&D. So there is that sort of dynamic. And when you think about valuing this as a business, you're looking at, okay, so what assets do they have today? And it's around just sub $2 billion, $1.8 billion in cash and marketable securities that they have. Doesn't really seem like they have a lot of debt. So it's really this cash that you should think about it. And now a deep value investor, and believe me, you can occasionally find these things. It's not really how I invest typically. Occasionally I'll buy a little something like this, but sometimes you'll find something that trades below that cash because people are just investors. Mr. Market is just so despondent about the company, saying they're never that pipeline's worthless. Effectively, that's what Mr. Market says. But right now, that's not what it's saying about CRISPR, because right now you have around a $5-6 billion market cap for CRISPR and cash of around $1.8 billion. So that's the market saying the pipeline, the products that have not yet been proven, that's worth around $4 billion. Now, then it goes to the question of, well, can I generate an attractive return? So if you have a $5-6 billion market cap, in order to generate attractive return, you need to pencil out at least, let's say, a $12 billion market cap. Okay. This starts getting really tricky because then you have to work backwards. Okay, so how do you get to a $12 billion market cap? Well, then you need earnings. Okay, so you're not there yet with earnings, so you need some drugs, treatments approved. Let's say you have $500 million in earnings. Well, $500 million in earnings, maybe that's $1 billion in annual revenue, 50% margin. So $500 million in earnings. Well, at 10 times earnings, that's $5 billion. At 20, now you're at, you're at 10. And so you're really talking about, if you're buying into this stock right now, as that director is, he's effectively betting that CRISPR will be generating $500 million in earnings, let's say over the next 5 years. That's really quite it almost makes me speechless. I mean, it makes me excited because hopefully it's helping people to a great deal and, curing a lot of diseases. But it's incredible when you go, oh yeah, this company's going from zero revenue or very close to it. There's some milestone payments to $500 million a year in order to sort of justify that 100% type of return. So that is very interesting to think about. So then I would say an expert in this field, which I'm not, would go, line by line, and dig into each of their, line items, each of their pipeline, potential lottery tickets, treatments that they're looking at, and say, what are the odds that you're going to do it, and what's the potential market? And that is something where, yeah, sure, I could ask AI to help me build that out, but I don't think I would have enough confidence to know when AI was making it up for me to be like, yes, like I so strongly believe in this. So I clearly the experts are looking at this and saying, yeah, 500 million in profits in the future, definitely very possible. But I think it's worth understanding that getting something approved and selling it in the market, that actually doesn't mean the 500 million profits, because you not only have to prove that you have effective treatments, you also have to prove that they're more effective than the competitors, because CRISPR is not the only one, trying this gene editing and, trying these different approaches to solve these big problems. So if you have someone that's following a very similar approach and they already have, let's say, 55% effectiveness, if you go into market and you're like, yeah, I'm 50%, 55% effective, you're not going to be able to really get into market or charge the premiums that this other player has. So these are the dynamics that are very tough. And also it's important to understand, yes, their products might already be in the market, one of which, the sickle cell, but it takes time for you to get to profit because you have to build out the facilities, the production. This is sort of cutting edge stuff. And so it's scaling production, proving that you're more effective than competitors, and proving that it is effective to help patients. These are multiple hurdles that you have to address. So it's largely too hard for me, but I think other, shrewd investors might just look at what, Dr. George is doing and seeing that, yeah, he bought $50 million of stock and he has a history of, betting on some potential winners. And he had several stocks, several businesses here that were either IPO'd or taken over at multi-billion-dollar valuations. For example, Turning Point Therapeutics, I believe he was an early investor there. And I believe Bristol Myers bought them for around $4 billion. So, when you see something like this, there's never, I wouldn't say there's any certainty here, but I think $50 million is a reflection of strong conviction that, this member of the board of directors of CRISPR is saying, yeah, this pipeline, this is worth a lot more than the $4 billion the market's assigning. Maybe it's worth 8, maybe it's worth even more. A little too hard for me, but exciting to see this huge insider buy. If you have a different perspective, I'd absolutely love to hear it in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching Unrivaled Investing.